The Department of Homeland Security is warning its law enforcement partners about two anniversaries in August that could generate violent extremist attacks. It's part of DHS's strategy to deal with homegrown violent extremism. Triana McNeil is Director of Homeland Security and Justice Issues at the Government Accountability Office. Triana, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. You write in this work, since 2010, DHS has developed strategic initiatives that target HVE. And you write, DHS's strategy contains some but not all of the key elements of a comprehensive strategy. And you write there are 7 of those. Where is DHS succeeding and where is it not having as much success in a strategy for dealing with HVE?
Sure. So DHS, their strategy has 3 components. Number 1, the framework, which outlines their vision for what they're trying to achieve as they counter terrorism. And the second component is the public action plan, what they are going to be telling the public to help hold them accountable for specific steps they plan to take and by when. And then the third is an internal implementation plan, and that's really the how-to guide for the staff at DHS. And DHS is doing a very good job in terms of having a clear mission, goals, and objectives for how it's going to counter this violent extremism. But where it's falling short is specific performance measures. For example, you want to know how far you can go with certain activities before you invest too much money and it's not really moving the needle. And so that's something that we would want DHS to incorporate into their strategy. We want to know the progress that's being made. So if they need to redirect resources to something that's working better, they can. And the other thing that we were looking for that they didn't have is the resource investments. How much money, how many staff, what types of skill sets do you need to implement this strategy? So those are the things we were looking for.
A couple of things there I want to pull on, but another thread that you write in this work is strategy didn't include a discussion of external factors, such as how the economy, demographics, or emerging technologies may affect the department in meeting its goals. That's kind of an overview of the landscape of what might be coming at us and the components of what might be coming at us. That's pretty important, it sounds like, to me, Triana.
It's critical. For example, these are live documents, this strategy. And so when the pandemic happened that we are still in, how is the pandemic affecting your achievements for these goals? How are you redirecting resources away from your planned activities to address some of these other issues related to the pandemic, as well as social media? We know violent extremists are using social media to coordinate their efforts and to plan. And how are you incorporating these advances in that type of technology as well into your strategy? So those are things that they need to stay on top of for sure.
The underpinning of all of this, it sounds to me, Triana, is data. And you write in this work, DHS has taken some steps to establish a data governance framework. DHS has already identified some data challenges. What's going well for them with that framework? You identified that as item number 1 of what they're doing well in. And what are the data challenges that DHS is having?
Sure. Well, they have established a data governance council. And that's important because that's the body that's going to tell DHS how to manage and use its data resources. It's established a strategy to make sure that that information is used as fully as possible and is shared agency-wide. All very important steps. They also have committed to investing in developing the skill set of their staff so their staff can fully leverage that data. That is all very good. However, they're in the early stages of incorporating targeted violence and terrorism prevention data into this governance framework. We're happy to see that they are making the commitment to incorporate this information into their broader agency-wide data governance framework, but they need to fully incorporate that. They also don't have a good handle on all of the data assets available to them when it relates to targeted violence. For example, they don't have one comprehensive database that tracks threats of violent extremism. These are things that we would hope that they would have, especially at this point.
You mentioned, you write in the recommendations here, one of them is to incorporate its targeted violence and terrorism prevention mission into its departmental governance of data. Is the incorporations, are the incorporation steps that you just mentioned and the establishment of that council steps in the right direction toward fulfilling the recommendations that you're making, Triana?
They're excellent steps, and we're going to continue to track their progress. And they have committed to us and agreed with our recommendations that that's something that they need to do and something that they will be doing. So we will continue to monitor that.
Another recommendation I note in your work is that DHS revise its strategy to include all key elements of a comprehensive strategy. You mentioned 3 of them at the beginning of this conversation. Does that mean they still have 4 others to go to fulfill the list of GAOs written in the past?
They do, and they're making some progress on 2 of those 4. For example, they have outlined different interim goals that they want to achieve, and I think that that's very smart because that's how you can track the interim progress. But again, they need performance measures. They need to identify the resources that they need to fully implement the strategy. That's critical, right? And then, of course, the external factors that we discussed, things like the pandemic, things like technological advances that violent extremists can take advantage of. Those are the things that they need to fully incorporate in their strategy.
Triana McNeil, thank you very much for joining me. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.